Thank you, Clint. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And it's wonderful to be here with the Forward Party of South Carolina. I'm excited to be here at your second gathering and convention. Our states are having conventions all over the country now, all our state parties, and it's a real sign that the momentum is real. And so I love your theme for today. I'm feeling that momentum in 1,000 ways. We are finally at a point where donors are looking at us when we talk to them about the Forward Party and they go, that might just work. And I open up the Hill today and they're talking about the Forward Party and the mayor of Georgetown. How exciting is that? And that the timing is right for the emergence of a third party. And I think so many of us have been conditioned to imagine that the two-party duopoly is just the only thing that America was ever intended to be or to do. And certainly the Republicans and the Democrats don't have any interest in allowing us to think anything else. But we know something's wrong. The American people know something's wrong. They've been opting out of the two-party duopoly in ever-growing numbers. Almost 50% of all registered voters today in America are independents. And we have to imagine they're independents for a reason, that they're looking for something. They may lean left or lean right, and that's the only question anyone ever asks them. Do you lean left or do you lean right? But what they're really saying is no party is really meeting my needs. No one is really being responsive to me. And so that leaves us this great opportunity to be able to genuinely meet Americans, voters, where they are. And I have to say that my experience with this was informed in a really interesting way. And maybe you've heard these quotes before, but I've gone back now, certainly on the 250th anniversary of our country's founding, to read a lot more of our founding papers and to learn a lot more about what our founders were really hoping for when they built this nation. And one of the most surprising things to me, and now some of the quotes that I keep, in the front of my mind as I'm doing this work when it becomes difficult, is that we were never intended to be a two-party country. In fact, John Adams thought this was the worst possible outcome that could happen to America. And I'm just going to read you a very quick quote from John Adams in case you haven't heard it before. He wrote, "There is nothing which I dread so much as the division of the Republic into two great parties, each arranged under its leader and concerting measures in opposition to each other. This, in my humble apprehension, is to be dreaded as the greatest political evil under our Constitution." When were we last reminded of that by the Republicans or the Democrats? And even further, if you look at the writings of George Washington, especially as he was leaving the presidency, he had seen how parties were starting to form and the mischief that they could get into when they were focused more on themselves and the individuals involved than the best interest of the nation. And he wrote, this is George Washington, "Political parties are likely are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will become enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion." I think that should all resonate with us today as we see some of the parties devouring themselves, being subverted for the interests of individuals on both sides of the aisle. And so I think we need to take these cautions seriously and to try to reimagine America where there is a third alternative, where we can actually focus on some of the issues that are so pressing in our nation right now, and yet neither of the majority parties are focused on these, and they don't want us to look at them either. I was struck the other day that we have a number of crises going on. Obviously, right now, we have the crisis of the war in Iran. But what about the other crises? that are facing our nation that we just don't ever hear about from our politicians. We owe $39 trillion to our creditors right now, and yet our politicians are not coming forward. They feel no urgency to pay off this money. They don't have a plan to balance the budget in the future, so it can only grow. How are we going to maintain our leadership in the world if we are the greatest debtor? And similarly, the AI revolution is all around us. Every day we hear of new incredible things that are being accomplished in the private sector, and yet our government is asleep. They aren't trying to either control or manage or even imagine, how do the workers of the future interact with AI? How are we going to protect all of the people who are going to be displaced by this revolution? And whether it's for the better or for the worse, there will be disruption, and our government should be caring about that. They should be thinking about it. They should be trying to guide it with wisdom. Similarly, our Social Security system is going to be bankrupt in 6 years. 6 years. And if the government doesn't do anything, if they don't take action, we'll see our seniors have their benefits cut by 20 to 25% because the money simply won't be there. And this is a known fact. And it's only 6 years away. We know how slowly government works. Why aren't we doing anything about it? Why aren't our politicians talking to us about this? Similarly, in healthcare, 500,000 people a year go bankrupt because of medical debt in this country. It's a terrible thing to imagine a whole family being dragged down by medical debt. And it's the leading cause of bankruptcy in our country today. And yet we're not talking about how to contain healthcare costs. That's not top on any politician's priority right now, either on the Democratic Party or on the Republican Party. And so for me, I see the opportunity for our candidates to move into the public sphere and to take hold of issues that are important to their own constituents, to be accountable only to their own constituents, and to genuinely create trust that doesn't exist anymore in government. The most recent polls have been showing that trust in Congress has literally dipped to 10%. So whoever we put forward, we are going to be able to tell them that they don't have to do anything other than represent their voters. We as a party are not going to be telling them what issues to address. We aren't going to be telling them what particular approach they have to a specific problem, but we will tell them what principles we want them to abide by. We want them to be ethical. We want them to obey the Constitution. We want them to uphold rule of law. We want them to be collaborative. We want them to base whatever policies they put forward on facts, on real facts that people can measure. And we want them to use science in the best interest of the country and individuals here. So we know that we have this moment. We have a place where principled public service and problem solving can actually rise up and inspire the American people to create a republic which is much more like what our founding fathers wanted for us. And a lot of people say, this is, you're too small. Third-party movements always fail. You'll be marginalized. Think for a moment what the fulcrum strategy is, which is a strategy that we're using right now when we're recruiting candidates, independent candidates, and forward party candidates for Congress. Right now, Congress is so evenly divided that if we had 5 representatives in an independent caucus in the House, we could dictate the outcome of every vote. We could pick the speaker. We could make sure that the rules are revised in a fair way. If we had even 3 people or 2 in the Senate, we could make sure that every vote was determined by those that were truly interested in the best interest of the country, as opposed to simply following a party line. And I can share with you today that we are in conversations with people in both houses about joining us, even in advance of this year's election, so that there can be a foothold where all of our independent candidates who are competing for Congress, and we have so many excellent candidates who are running as independents across this country this year, many of them forward party candidates. Um, they will have a place to go. They will have an example they can see. And people in Congress right now, a few, are becoming stronger. Their backbone is becoming stiffer. They are understanding that this is the moment that we can change history by simply standing on principle and being an independent third party. And so with that, I'd like to thank all of you for what you're doing, all the time that you're spending on building this new vision. We're all founders in our own way now. And it's a very selfless activity that you are engaged in. You are trying to make a new future and a brighter future for the country. And it's not such a long shot. I'm telling you that we can accomplish it, if not in this next electoral cycle, in the next one. So push on. Have a wonderful time meeting your candidates today. I'm excited by how many candidates you have running in South Carolina and the quality of those candidates. So thank you, Clint, and thank you everyone for having me today.